Hello there. Welcome to my show, COVID-19 Update by Heerak. Um, I hope that you're doing well and that your family is well. As you know, it is the Lord's Day or Sunday on October 4th, 2020. And today is known as 10-4 Day because it's October 4th. And so, yeah, 10-4 is known as the communication code for radio. 10-4, yeah, police officers use it on their CV. 10-4. So can I get a 5 on 10-4? Can I get a 5? Yeah, give me a 5 on 10-4. Um, Yeah, so today is Sunday, so I have hymn music, Christian hymn music playing in the background. Then United States of America has over 300 million people who are Christians, and that's for Black people. Majority of the Black people are Christians. Black people from the Caribbean, Jamaica, um, Afro-Caribbean, they're known, and U.S. Virgin Islands, Barbados, so you have African Caribbean Christians who are in America who are worshiping God. There are Afro Caribbean churches, although many Afro Caribbean individuals have integrated into the larger African American community, like Condoleezza Rice, um, and many other people. Um, and there are Christians who are Latino, like over 99% of Latino are Christians. And yeah, so Latinos are the largest segment of American uh, communities of color. Um, and yeah, and Latinos go to church. The majority of them are Catholics. But there's a large segment who are Assemblies of God, Baptist, and other evangelical Christian denominations. And so Latinos throughout America, from Arlington, Virginia, to uh, to uh, to Los Angeles, California, are going to church. And there are Asians who are Christians, and Filipino population is like 99% Christian. If you meet a Filipino Christian, they will most Filipino individual, that person will be Christian. Like today, uh, the nurse supervisor at um, um, Virginia Hospital Center. I worked a midnight shift from 7 a.m. on Saturday to 7 a.m. on Sunday. And their nursing supervisor is Filipino. And he was saying that he's going to church on Sundays. So yeah, and it was interesting. We had an interesting conversation about the concept of Filipino and Filipino American. And our nursing supervisor, he's like the top guy in all the units in our area. And he was saying, yeah, he was saying he doesn't like to call himself like Filipino American, although he's from Brooklyn. Um, but he wants to call himself like Filipina. And so, I thought it was very interesting, because as you know, I'm Korean American, and it's like that in Korean community too. Um, Koreans generally do not use the term Korean American among Koreans. Like when we're around Koreans, I'm actually born in Korea, so I came over from Korea. But there are Koreans who are born in America. There are Koreans who are born in America to parents who are born in America. But most Koreans don't like to call themselves Korean American. They like to call themselves Koreans. So they use the term Korean American when they are with white people, but when they're with like other Korean Americans, they call themselves Korean. We don't really use the term Korean American among Koreans because it sounds weird. And I guess, maybe that's the case with Filipino American community, uh, you know, I was thinking about that as our nursing supervisor was sharing with us about, his his identity. He sees himself as Filipino rather than Filipino American. Although he's a U.S. citizen and he's from Brooklyn, but and I know many Koreans as well. They don't like using the term Korean American because they feel like that's watering down their ethnic identity. And different people have different reasons for why they don't like to be called Korean American, but they rather be called Korean. But one of the reasons why Korean Americans like to call themselves Korean is number one, they feel like Korean American waters down their identity. Like they feel like if you have a dash on it, it's like you have a mother and a father. So let's say your father is Korean and your mother's white. Korean Americans who are 100% ethnically Korean think, well, you can use the term Korean American because they're like father's Korean, mother's like Anglo white American. And in the Korean community, when they say American, they generally it's interchangeable with the word white. And there are over 100 nationalities represented in Arlington. And most immigrants, when they use the term American, they refer to like white people in America. That's just the way that's used in their home countries, so that carries over. So I was able to totally relate to my nursing supervisor, and uh, our nursing supervisor, he's like he visits different units, and he does a lot of important things. So he's one of the leadership at top leadership at Virginia Hospital Center. But I could totally relate to what he was saying because it's the same in the Korean community, and it's the same in the Chinese community. Like Chinese Americans who are 100% ethnic Chinese don't go around saying I'm Chinese American to each other, right? When they're with Chinese Americans or 100% ethnic American, they say we're Chinese, or we're Taiwanese, or we're Japanese, or we're Vietnamese, we're Cambodians, So that's when I realized, like today, when I was hearing him talk, and you know, uh, four of us were talking. He was there, and my charge nurse is uh, uh, was Filipino today, and my preceptor is Filipino, and I'm Korean. So four of us were talking. And I was just like, kind of, I was like, wow, it feels like a Korean community. Yeah, they're all like really wonderful people, and really nice. So yeah, but I was thinking like, wow, like this is so similar to like Korean community. It's like I guess that's why we say Asian Americans are like identity. And I'm sure Mark Kim, he spells his last name Kim with Keam. He's the Virginia delegate from Vienna, uh, Vienna, Virginia. Uh, he spells his name Keam, but remember, we Koreans do not use the English alphabet in Korea. So Mark Kim, although he spells his name Keam, his last name is the same as my last name, which is Kim. Um, and we're like what 30% or more of Korean population. And all the Koreans are linked by blood. I mean, obviously, but Kims are more related. And there are different types of Kim. So if his type of Kim is my Kim, then we're like distant relatives. You know what I'm saying? Um, But it's that's what you call ethnic identity, right? It starts from the basic family unit, mother, father, child, and the cousins, relatives, and then it spreads out nationally, like right. So all Filipinos are related by blood. It's not just fictional ties or non-blood ties. Like in America, there are a lot of people that are related through citizenship that has no blood ties, right? But in most countries around the world, I would say over 90 countries around the world, everybody's linked by blood ties. Meaning like Korea is 100% like Korean by blood. They're all linked by blood. They're all relatives, distant relatives, and long scheme of things. Japanese people the same, Chinese people the same, Indians the same, Pakistanis. Although Pakistanis and Indians they share a race, it's just difference in religion. Um, it's like that in Germany. Germans, they all trace themselves back to Germanic tribes. And Anglo Saxons, right? The English people, they trace themselves to the race of Anglos and Saxons. These are two tribes going way back when. And you have the Scandinavians who are all linked by blood. Sweden, Denmark, Norway. You have Danish, the Dutch people, Holland. They're linked by blood. They're linked to South African Afrikaans, who are like Dutch who immigrated to South Africa. And Africans are the same. You have the Nigerians. In Nigeria, people are linked by blood. I mean, there are different tribes, but ultimately, all these tribes go way back when, thousands of years to the same kind of ancestors. So, and same with Kenya, same with and it's like that in Latin America too, like Mexico, everybody's linked by blood, one way or another. Um, so, so the identity in America is is the exception to the rule. Like over 90% of the nations in the world, nation is built around blood and marriage ties. Mostly blood ties, but also marriage ties. But they're really linked because people of same ethnic group like to generally marry people of the same ethnic group. Like my mentor, Jessica Nguyen, at Georgetown University, who graduated 1 year before me in 2019 in clinical nurse leader cohort. And her sister is now at Georgetown University clinical nurse leader cohort 2021. You know, yeah, people are very happy with Georgetown clinical nurse leader program. So the siblings, we have like sibling combos. Like, so Jessica Nguyen, she went to George Mason University for bachelor's and George Mason for master's in public health before coming to Georgetown University for clinical nurse leader program. And so, she's local Yoko. She's from Fairfax County. She immigrated here and went to schools in Fairfax County. And her sister, yeah, she went to the University of Virginia, UVA, and got her bachelor's and came over to Georgetown for clinical nurse leader program. And so she's local Yoko as well. Um, but Jessica Nguyen is she's Vietnamese, and her boyfriend is Vietnamese as well. And so it's kind of like that with Korean community. A lot of Koreans they marry Korean. Although among Asian Americans, there's a growing number of Asians marrying among each other. I mean, we all kind of look alike. I look Filipino. Um, I could pass for a Filipino. I could say I'm a Filipino. Nobody will really doubt it, really. Um, so yeah, one of my roommates, one of my best friends from University of Pennsylvania, Kenneth Pui. He's a Filipino. He's Chinese origin, but he's Chinese Filipino. But he identifies himself more as Filipino. But he has Chinese. Kenneth Ui. Ui is a Chinese last name, right? But he's from Metro Manila in Dasmariñas village. He lives near the U.S. ambassador to Philippines. And it was one of my closest friends, and like he belonged to the Filipino American Association at University of Pennsylvania. So like I knew a lot of Filipinos, And you know, like um, so there is kind of like an identity linkage that is kind of perpetuated through marriage as well. His parents want him to marry somebody who's Filipino Chinese. Like, they want somebody who's like, who's like kind of similar to him. So most parents want their children to marry people who are similar to them because they're more comfortable with them, and they have share the same culture, same language, same food, same holidays. So it makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure that's the case with over 100 different nationalities in Arlington County. I'm sure that Ethiopians in Arlington County who are immigrants from Ethiopia want their children to marry Ethiopian. Eritreans want their children to marry Eritreans, although they're like neighboring countries in Africa. But Eritreans may marry Ethiopians, um, but they're from the same continent. Uh, but among Eritreans, being an Eritrean is an important identity. So you may be like, well, they're both black, they're both from like Africa. What's the difference? But to them, it matters because Eritrea has a different history from Ethiopia. And for them, this distinction is very, very important. So when you look at Ethiopians and Eritreans all in together, you're like, oh, they're the same, but they're not. They are completely different in terms of identity. Uh, you know, um, and when they get married, their parents want them to marry their identity, like Eritreans to marry Eritreans, uh, Ethiopians to marry Ethiopians. That's the preference the parents have. The majority of the ethnic Eritreans will marry Eritreans. Majority of the ethnic Ethiopians will marry Ethiopians. That's just the way it's going to be. And that's the way it's been since the beginning of time. I mean, you have exceptions to the rule, where some Ethiopians will marry Eritreans, and some Ethiopians will marry non-Ethiopians or non-Eritreans, like different part of Africa, like Kenya or you know uh, or Egypt, And then you may have Ethiopians who marry outside of the continent of Africa, with German person or a Greek person, and you have Ethiopians who marry like Asians, like Koreans or Chinese. So these things do happen, but it's very, very rare. Majority of an ethnic group will marry their own ethnic group. That's just the way things are. Um, and so you'll see that among uh, all 100 ethnic groups in Arlington County. And so, often white liberal progressives do not understand how important ethnic identity is to ethnic groups in Arlington County. They just don't know because they're not Ethiopian, they're not Eritrean, they're not Filipino, they're not Korean, they're white. And white Americans who've been around in America for hundreds of years, they don't understand what it what an ethnic identity means to ethnic people. They just don't understand, and they'll never understand because it's not part of their experience. Their worldview doesn't go from that vantage point. It starts from different vantage point, and they have a Jihari square shows like they have a blind spot where it's impossible for them to really understand that fully. I mean, some of them try, and it's great that they're trying, but it's hard to understand what you don't experience. Um, and that's why human beings are a product of their identity in terms of their cultural heritage, their history, their their ethnic uh, ethnic experiences, um, and you know these things are driving force around understanding of self, group identity, and others. And as you know, I'm an expert of Jewish history, and my field of expertise is identity, self-perception, individual identity, group identity. And obviously, when you have group identity conflicting, you have group conflict. And if group conflict becomes strong enough, it becomes it could get violent, right? And it could turn into like a war, right? So once there is group conflict, you have fighting of words, which is often referred to as like propaganda warfare, right? Um, so there's an active process and passive process in group identity, right? That it emerges during conflict periods, right? And that's something that you cannot really, control, right? Because it doesn't matter who you are, you're just a small part of the larger group identity. So, um, in a sense, you are within that zone, and some people work to get out of it, and some people succeed. But if you want to operate it within the context of the group, you can't totally escape it. It's like being a Catholic, 1.2 billion Catholic. You may be very powerful and influential, but if you say abortion is okay, you're not gonna have the legitimacy of the popular mandate, because to be a Catholic means you oppose abortion. So even Catholics will not see you as a primary leader of a Catholic faith, right? Just because they know that part of the Christian faith is that you cannot kill other babies who are innocent. So, so you cannot change that. So an individual who is influential cannot change certain things that are fundamental core values of a community that spans centuries or generations. It's just you can't change it. In a sense. So you are part of a system that is a driving force, and we say that is the power of history, historical force, historical causation. Um, so no matter how powerful you are as an individual, there's no way you could change it, because it's kind of some people talk about it as a cultural DNA. It's a core essential identity, and there may be those who have like aberrations in their DNA, but the fundamental core of your DNA makeup remains the same. You can use healthcare terms like cancer, cells that grow in a cancerous way, to describe, negative terms, individuals who go away from their own identity. Um, but obviously the group will consider you as cancerous if you try to subvert their identity. And that's why you quickly lose your mandate for power. And that's why the group is always greater than the individual. Doesn't matter how great you are as an individual, you cannot go against the group, cultural or religious or historical or group identity mandate, and succeed. It just doesn't happen in history. And that explains to a reason why Hitler rose to power, because he used the term Third Reich, right? The third kingdom of Germans. And that resonated with Germans. Germans want to be powerful as a nation. It's like President Trump saying, "Make America great again," MAGA. That resonates with majority of white people, and majority of people who are not white, but mostly with white people, who are the majority. All you need is white majority to win the election. But like even Black Americans who've been here a long time, Asians who've been here a long time, you know, that concept resonates. But certainly, there are desires to be great, right? As a nation, as an ethnic group, and that in and of itself is a driving force. So when Hitler came and said, Germans, we are the Third Reich, and he linked it to the rest of Jewish history or German history, there were no intellectuals who could overcome that, because it's a cultural force, historical force, and that's what the Nazis called the zeitgeist, spirit of the age. You cannot overcome that kind of a cultural force. President Trump was able to ride the cultural force, um, denigrating what is conceived as non-American, um, and he won. I mean, he capitalized as a politician, sounds brilliantly in terms of politics, to beat Hillary Clinton, who statistically had every chance of winning. But identity politics delegitimized Hillary, because Hillary tried to include everybody, and that just doesn't work. Now, in any type of identity politics, you have to exclude people, and that's part of the group process. Anybody who studied group dynamics, and I'm a historian, That's all I've studied basically, or the majority of what I've studied. That's identity politics, right? In order for you to be strong, you have to denigrate the other, and that's what when you see Republicans and Democrats fighting, one of the things they do is they try to say good things about themselves, but they try to say bad things about the other, right? Democrats and Republicans, they say bad things about each other. And that's a formation of group identity. But the strongest force, obviously, is force that is tied to history, historical prejudices. As long as you can ride historical prejudice, you can win the election. That's the way things are. Now, that's what President Trump did in 2016 very effectively. But obviously President Trump is not doing it as well in 2020. That's why some people are predicting that he will lose. Because identity politics cannot include everybody. It just doesn't work. And I think there are some political strategies in President Trump's camp where trying to include everybody, but it always weakens your own group. I mean, just you can't escape it. And we see that because President Trump is in hospital fighting for his life, but the protesters who are trying to support President Trump is not as many. And that's a very good indicator of how much American white people resent President Trump trying to include all different things. Whenever you try to include everybody, you're going to lose the majority of your own ethnic group. That's just the way things are. That's just life. Um, if you remember in 2016, he said a lot of negative things about other groups, and that codified and strengthened his own ethnic group, which is white American, right? And so it just you can't escape this. I mean, I've studied history for a long time. As you know, I'm an expert of history, trained as a professional historian at UCLA in a doctoral program in history there. And so um, yeah, my GPA from UCLA is like 3.85. It's over 3.8. It's like summa cum laude. So so yeah. So basically, I'm a very good historian. Obviously, I'm a certified historian. I've published books on history. I've presented papers in history. World's historians recognize me as a professional historian, expert in history. So obviously, I provide insights about history that average people cannot provide, including journalists. And that's why you watch this show, because I understand why things happen the way they happen. And it's tragic for President Trump because when he's sick and in hospital, you should have, if he's like, if he has the popular mandate that he had in 2016, you would have like thousands of people marching for his life. You can't necessarily create that because you cannot force people to do things. People do what they want to do, um, and they have to feel strongly about something to do what they do. You see what I mean? But when you're condemning like white supremacists, you're gonna lose all the white people. I've talked about this show before. I'm not white. I could never be white. I could never join a white supremacy group. So I feel like I can be objective about this as a historical phenomenon, right? When you condemn white nationalists, you're not going to lose like 80% of the white people, not just the white supremacists, like card-carrying white supremacists, KKK, Aryan Nation, whatever. They're like probably less than 10% of white people. But the sympathizers to KKK and Aryan Nation, meaning some people who are what we call familiars in the vampire movies, people who kind of want to join, but they don't really want to have the hassle from people who criticize KKK or an Aryan Nation. They're, generally over 20-30%. So about 40% of white Americans have no problem with KKK or Aryan Nation personally. They may say other things, because you say things when people like pressure you, but what they believe inside, what they feel inside, I'm talking about. 40% or more white Americans have no real problem with KKK or Aryan Nation. It doesn't hurt them at all. It actually helps them. So they don't care. Um, and those who are not familiars, using the vampire terms in the vampire movies, for those who are not sympathizers, uh, about I would say about 40%. So would say they don't really have a serious problem with it. They may say they may criticize it, like you may criticize your father, but you still love your father. It's like sometimes you criticize your friend, but you still love your friend. So I would say 40% of white Americans have that kind of relation with KKK and Aryan Nation. They may say negative things, but they don't really genuinely have problem with it. So I would say about 80% of America's whites have genuinely no problem with KKK or Aryan Nation, like internally in their heart. You have, I would say, maybe 5% of Americans who are white who may at least think that they have a problem with Aryan Nation. Um, and among them, you have people who are not, who are hurt by Aryan Nation, like Jews, white Jews who have serious problems because that's part of their identity. It's like 6 million people. Um, but if you're a Latino white person, if you're like ethnically white Latino, you can join KKK. There's no problem. So so I would say over 80% of whites in America have genuinely no problem with Aryan Nation or KKK. And so when President Trump came out and said, I condemn white supremacists, he's going to lose like 80% of white people because they genuinely don't have problem with it. And group identity being what it is, they're going to feel offended. Like they're going to feel it in their gut. Like when President Trump says, I don't support white supremacists, most people don't feel anything like if they're not white. Like you're not white, I'm not white, we're like, hey, great. But if you're white, you're gonna feel like, oh, hey, President Trump is rejecting white supremacists. It's kind of rejecting white people in America. You're gonna feel it in there. Yeah. If you're white, you're gonna feel it viscerally. Like even if you say I hate white people, white supremacists, you go around saying I hate white supremacists to other people. When President Trump condemns white supremacy, you're gonna feel it viscerally here. And all the white people in Arlington, Alexandria Falls, Church of Fairfax County, majority of you know what I'm saying. If you're not Jewish, I mean, if you're Jewish, obviously you hate Aryan Nation because they're like Nazis, neo-Nazis. The Nazis killed 6 million Jews. But if you're not Jewish, I'm saying, if you're not Jewish, you don't have any like Jewish roots or Jewish blood, or because there are Christians, white Christians who have Jewish roots, and then they may have that vestige of Jewish identity. But I'm talking about like white people who have no Jewish roots, no Jewish, even if you're married to a Jew, if you don't have Jewish roots, you may not feel it. So like when President Trump condemned white supremacists after the debate, nobody's going to real feel. I mean, not majority of the people will feel sympathetic to President Trump. They're going to say, well, he got his. That's what I would say. Majority of white people are like saying he got his. That's why you have like hundreds of people demonstrating. You don't have like hundreds of thousands of people demonstrating because he just did the wrong thing. I mean, I gave him advice not to condemn white supremacists because he's going to lose all the white people. I mean, he didn't listen. That's his fault, right? I'm not white. I'm Asian. I could never join a white supremacist. I could never be a member of white supremacists. White supremacists may, even persecute me, but that doesn't change the fact that there is a group identity that's at play among white people. And if you want to win elections, you can't ignore it because, yeah, President Trump is not running for the position of the Pope of the world or United Nations, general secretary position. He's running for office of United States president. All he needs is majority vote, and majority of people in America is white. So President Trump needs to decide what he wants out of life, right? If you want white people to vote for you, you need to kind of play into their white identity, right? It's identity politics. If you're going to condemn white supremacists, well, what are you trying to do? I mean, are you trying to lose the election or are you trying to win the election? You know what I'm saying? So the Team Trump needs to like reflect on themselves. Like there are a lot of Jews in Team Trump because Ivanka Trump converted to Judaism and married Jared Kushner, who's Jewish. Kushner's whole family is 100% Jewish. Obviously, there are Jews who convert to Christianity among the Kushners. That does happen. In which case, like for them, like Jewish identity is important. So they can't think like a white Protestant. They can't think like a white Catholic because they're Jewish. I mean, it's just impossible to do. As I said, your experiences and identity defines you. So if you're Jewish, obviously you're going to think like a Jew. If you're a Protestant, you're going to think like a Protestant. If you're a Catholic, you're going to think like a Protestant Catholic. You can intellectually try to imagine something, but you can never really viscerally feel it, And so That's identity politics. It's like somebody, criticizing Phillies, and you're from Philadelphia. You may never watch baseball. You may even not like baseball, but you're gonna feel it viscerally. You're gonna feel like, oh, when somebody criticizes the Phillies. Why do you feel that way? Because it's part of your identity, active or passive. You see what I'm saying? And that is to show you, like, you could be Filipino and you may have married a white woman, not speak a word of Filipino, um, and you may not have any Filipino friends because you are like a total banana, white on the inside and yellow on the outside, and we use the term banana for like Koreans and Japanese and Chinese, Vietnamese, right? They use the term among themselves bananas or, Twinkie. Um, and so, your own ethnic group is going to be tougher on you than, you know, non-group when, it's just, nature of the identity, right? Identity politics. So President Trump is making a big mistake. 30 days into before election, it's not looking good because he condemned white supremacists. That's what Democrats wanted him to do because they want to win the election, right? Um, but you can't play into their hands. And the Trump team is filled with Jews, so they don't understand how white Protestants and Catholics think. There are like 60 million of Americans white Catholic, 200 million Americans are white Protestant. They have no problem with white, like some Catholics may have problem with KKK because, it's anti-Catholic as well. But certainly 200 million Protestants don't really have problem with KKK that much. And I would say Aryan Nation, 60 million Catholics don't have problem with Aryan Nation that much. I mean, I'm talking about normal people. They don't really, I mean, some people may talk about it, but you have like small fraction who have a real problem with them. But majority of Catholics don't have problem with Aryan Nation. Or like Aryan Nation type of people, anti-Semites or card-carrying anti-Semites, So as you remember, Hitler was anti-Semitic, um, and Italy joined Hitler. The Vatican supported Hitler during the Holocaust, because Christians don't really care if Jews are killed, to protect the Christian religion. It's just intergroup identity, right? Jews versus Arabs is Jewish-Arabic conflict. Arabs don't care if Jewish nation gets destroyed. Actually, they may want that. In the same way, when you have a Jewish-Christian conflict, Christians don't care if you kill 6 million Jews. They don't, and that's why Eric Myers from Hebrew Union College, who's an expert, Hebrew Union College trains Reformed Jewish rabbis. So that's the greatest, biggest Jewish denomination among Judaism in America, and Hebrew Union College is the main seminary to train Jewish rabbis. Eric Myers is one of the authority on anti-Semitism in America, and he said the reason that Franklin Delano Roosevelt did not talk about Hitler killing 6 million Jews in the Holocaust or gas chamber was because he was afraid the majority of Americans would object to U.S. entering the war to stop that, because Americans wanted Jews dead. Um, you know how when you would not kill somebody yourself, but you kind of wish harm on other people. Like you say, well, the people who hate President Trump are saying, well, I wish he dies, right? And they're tweeting that out, which is horrible. I want President Trump to live, although I think his chances of living is very low because he's over 70 and he's fat. I mean, I'm not saying it to be mean, but he is overweight. So, like, why are people saying they want President Trump to die? Why? Why are they saying something like that? Isn't that like mean? Isn't that nasty? But they're saying that because they would not personally kill President Trump with a knife, but you know, they would they wouldn't mind if President Trump dies, or they actually would like it if he dies. That's just the way group identity politics works, right? And you probably have felt that with your friends. Like if you have a best friend who stabbed you on the back, slept with your wife, you may not go and kill him. Some of you may, hopefully not, don't do it. But um, but you may be happy if he gets run over by a car and dies. You know what I mean? And you should be happy, but you're going to feel that way, and you're not going to feel bad about it. And you don't even tell your friends, "Hey, well, he cheated on my wife. He deserved it." You see what I'm saying? So you got to understand how group identity works. And for President Trump, it's tragic. The last thing he said before his COVID-19 diagnosis is that he condemns white supremacists. He's lost like 80% of white people, in both parties, Republican. I mean, they may still come back to him, but it's hard, when you do something like that. Um, yeah, it's hard because group identity is at a visceral level. You feel it inside, and you may feel like, hey, you may say something. You may say, I hate KKK, I hate Aryan Nation, and you're white. But inside, when people criticize KKK or white supremacy, you may feel like something in your stomach nodding away. It's kind of like whenever somebody criticizes Koreans, I get upset. Even when they criticize Andy Kim from New Jersey, who's Democrat, as you know, I'm very conservative. I'm kind of right of Republicans. Um, and when people criticize Mark Kim, in Vienna, I mean, I feel it. Even though if Mark Kim ran against me in U.S. Congress, he'll be my primary conflict because I'm Republican, conservative. I'm hoping that Mark Kim and Andy Kim, see, we're all Kims, right? Andy Kim is a U.S. Congressman in New Jersey. Mark Kim, although his name is spelled differently, is a Virginia delegate in Vienna. And I'm sure they feel the same. Like when I'm attacked, they may say like blah blah blah, but they're gonna feel it in their heart. Like Andy Kim from New Jersey, U.S. Congressman for Democratic Party, and Mark Kim, Democrat delegate to U.S. House of Delegates. I'm sure they will feel it. Because that's what group identity means. It's not that you want to feel anything, but you feel it. It's like somebody attacks your brother, and you might have had the biggest fist fight, and you might have got a bloody nose from your little brother, and you're saying to even your best friends and your mom and dad you hate them. If somebody like says mean thing about him, you're gonna say, hey, I could say bad thing about my brother, but you can't. And even after like a bloody fight, fist fight, you feel like that. Why? Because it's an identity thing. You know, and so you have to understand identity politics, or you're not going to be able to survive in history. You know, and that's where I think I worry for President Trump, because he has like too many Jews in Team Trump. They don't understand how Protestants think and Catholics think, and Catholics and Protestants who are white are going to lie to like Jared Kushner and say, "Oh yeah, yeah, we should condemn the white supremacists," because they don't want to like, there's that family relationship, son-in-law or president going there, so they're going to lie to their teeth, and so I feel bad for President Trump because he's not going to get the truth from anybody, you know. Well, I give him the truth; he should listen to me, but he doesn't. That's why he's probably going to lose the election on November 2020. Unfortunately, I mean, the games, you have to look at the proof, right? When you have hardly anybody supporting you outside the hospital, like a few hundred people, that shows that you don't really have popular support. You know, I mean, think about it. This is 30 days before the election. If your complete hope is in President Trump and you feel like he's the only one who could save America, you should have millions of people protesting. It's kind of like George Floyd protest. But the fact that people are not protesting is a bad sign. Like, it's like when you go to hospital and nobody visits you, it says something, right? You go to hospital and like everybody visits you, it says something. You know what I'm saying? Um, yeah, because people are busy and people like to do fun stuff in their free time. They don't want to do things that are not fun unless it means something to them, right? And so, I feel bad for President Trump because he doesn't seem to have much of the popular. I mean, I'm sure people want to support him and vote for him, when it's convenient for them. But it's when people do support you when it's not convenient for you. That's what shows how much they are committed to you and loyal to you. But in order for you to be loyal, in order for you to have their loyalty and commitment, you need to go out of your way too. Like President Trump should have never condemned white supremacists. Like when he condemned white supremacists, lost 80% passionate desire to support him. Because passion comes from the heart, right? You don't love a woman because it's a rational thing to do to love a woman. You love a woman because she's hot. She has beautiful face, beautiful breasts, beautiful buttocks, beautiful thighs, beautiful arms. Maybe some guys like beautiful arms, like thin arms. Maybe she has a beautiful stomach. Most guys, care about physical beauty the most. So I mean, personality doesn't really matter. I mean, if you look like, you know, um, if you look beautiful, guys don't really care what your personality is. That's just, I mean, they may care. If you have sex with the guy, he's going to lose all respect for you. After you have sex with him, he's going to care. He's going to dump you. If you have that personality, but as long as you withhold the sex, he's not going to care. Um, yeah, that's just the way guys are. Guys, once guys have sex with a girl, they don't respect the girl. I mean, I don't know any guy who respects the girl except for their wife, because their wife kind of like imprisons them into a wedding. Um, yeah, if you get the guy to like marry you, the guy's whooped, you know, he's like your slave, because he's submitted to your. He put a ring on his finger. He's like your slave. He knows he's been whooped. That's like a domesticating a wild animal, like putting a ring on a man. That's like domesticating a wild animal. Yeah, once you do that, the guy knows his whoop. That's why he's going to treat you with respect. You know. But women who are not married, he's like, he can walk away anytime from a girlfriend. Yeah, the moment you give a guy sex, he loses all respect for you. Um, that's just the way guys are. I mean, you can't change nature. Um, yeah, and so, but he's not going to tell you he lost all respect for you, because the way guys think is like, hey, she's giving me sex. Other women are not giving me sex, but I want to have sex, so I'm going to use her until I can get a better woman. That's how guys think. That's what the stupidest thing a girl could do is give a guy sex. Yeah, because if he finds a woman who's willing to give him sex, who's prettier than you, then he's going to upgrade. Guys love to buy a new car, trade in their old car for a new car. That's what guys do. The guys don't want to, hold on to their old car. They want to trade it in for a better car. You and expecting you bottom. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to tell you the truth because you need to know the truth, especially if you're women, because in this age of feminazis, age of like women trying to like shut guys up, you're not going to hear the truth. And I'm going to tell you the truth so you don't suffer from lies, right? I want you to be happy. And if you just hear the lies, you're not ever going to be happy. Obviously do what you want. You're not a slave. You want to have sex with a guy, have sex with a guy. I mean, that's sin. So if you don't repent, you go to hell. But do what you want. You're not a slave. But I'm going to tell you the way to happiness, and I would encourage you to just follow that path if you want to be happy in life. Because especially if you love the guy. He says, well, if you want to have sex with me, put a ring on me. If he walks away, then he wasn't, I mean, emotionally, you want him to be with you, and you may be too weak, and you may give in to sex. But if he's not willing to marry you to have sex with you, then he was never yours to start with. You know, that's how you know. That's how 100% of the women can tell if the guy loves her. Uh, in a real way. Because if he's willing to walk away because of sex, then he doesn't love you. Yeah, no guy who's truly in love will walk away because you don't give him sex. That's the only way you could verify whether a guy truly loves you. So don't waste time. I mean, you're young, only for what, 18 to 26. After that, you have cellulite, and you start, your whole body starts degenerating. So yeah, so I mean, don't waste time with a guy who's not truly in love with you. The smartest thing to do is say, hey, you want to have sex with me? You have to marry me. And if he walks away, then move on to the guy, another guy. It's not like there's only one guy for you in the world. You can fall in love with thousands of different guys, So and same with the girls. And God, if you're a guy, you could fall in love with thousands of different ones. You know, it's just the question is who you marry, and then you've got to stay faithful, even if you fall in love with other women after you're married, because you are going to. Just human beings fall in love with many, 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 many different women. Men fall in love with many, many different women throughout their life. You shouldn't have sex with the woman you fall in love with when you're married to another woman that you originally fell in love with. But you are going to fall in love with many women throughout your life. That's just the way guys are. That's why I say, if you're a woman, keep the guy in short leash. Because I promise you, your husband will fall in love with other women. He will. It's just, that's the way life is. And that's how human being males are wired. You know, but anyway, yes, I created this show to share truth with you because I want you to be happy. You're not going to be happy with lies, okay? So you think that shutting people up and not getting offended by what people say is making you happy? It's not. It's actually damning you to a whole life of unhappiness, right? Truth is what sets you free, not lies. Yeah. Um, and the Bible is all about truth, right? Right? And that's why you go to church. You want to hear the truth, right? Do you want to go to church and hear lies? It's a waste of time to go to church and hear lies. You want to go to church and hear the truth. Um, as you know, I'm running for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th District. I'm running as an independent. I'm not Republican. I'm not Democrat. I'm an independent candidate for U.S. Congress. Right now, I filed a lawsuit against, I filed it on June 3rd, 2020, against Virginia Governor Northam and Virginia Department of Elections to waive the requirement for 1,000 signatures and to put my name on the ballot. Because Virginia Governor Northam issued a stay-at-home order on March 30th to last till June 10th, and the deadline for submitting 1,000 signatures of petitioners or voters in Virginia's 8th District, which is Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, and Fairfax County, parts of Fairfax County, was due on June 9th. And obviously, because there was a stay-at-home order from June 3rd or March 30th to June 10th. That's like several months. Um, it was illegal for me to go and collect signatures in Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, and Fairfax County. So I wrote a letter to Chip Piper who's the top honcho commissioner of Virginia Department of Election to waive the signature requirement because it's illegal for me to go door to door to collect signatures. The deadline is June 9th, and the stay-at-home order goes from March 30th to June 10th. Right? I mean, it's only fair that I get a waiver because I start running as an independent in March. Um, I was running as a Republican from November to February, and before I knew that Virginia Governor Northam was going to do a stay-at-home order because that was on March 30th, I switched parties. I mean, I didn't switch parties. God led me to a direction, and I talked about that, in one of my videos. And you can go to Heerak Christian Kim for Congress YouTube channel and watch that video. So God led me to change, from being a Republican candidate, which did not require me to collect any signatures because we had a convention, and in a Republican convention of Virginia 8th District, delegates voted for the candidates, and I believe I would have won if I stayed on there. But there were factors beyond my control that did not allow me to stay on. Yeah, to be honest, I didn't have the money to pay for the fee to by the deadline to run as a Republican candidate for Virginia's 8th District. And so if you don't have the money, what can you do, right? So I made like a last appeal, and I'm sure if God wanted me to be one as a Republican, God would fill the coffers, and I would have had enough money for the filing fee, by the filing deadline in February to run as a Republican candidate. But God did not provide the money through obviously people in Virginia's 8th District, which is the way God often shows His will. And so I was forced to go independent, But yeah, I mean, obviously, had I collected enough money to file, I would have filed as a Republican. I would have run for the Republican convention. I would have won. I was very popular with all the delegates. Um, and then I would have been running on the Republican ticket, but obviously God did not want me to do that. And that's why He didn't give me the money. See, I believe in the sovereignty of God. God is in control. And everything that happens in history happens because God's in control. So I believe that. Uh, I went to Georgetown University. I didn't have any money, but God made it possible for me to borrow $200,000 for 2 years of Georgetown's master's degree in clinical nurse leader. It was, in a sense, that was a small miracle. Maybe I'll talk about that another time. But being able to borrow $200,000, you think that's easy? I had maxed out on my student loans, federal student loans. So the fact that God allowed me to borrow $200,000 to alternate channels when I maxed out on federal student loans is a miracle in and of itself. And that's how I know God wanted me to do a master's degree in clinical nurse leader at Georgetown. Because God made it possible for me to borrow $200,000 when I maxed out on federal student loans. And I had no way to borrow it, but God allowed channels to open for me to borrow it. Obviously, I have to pay it back, and I have like with interest, I'll end up paying back like $500,000 over the next 30 years. Um, but the fact that God opened the doors for me to borrow $200,000 is the way God directed me to this program. If I couldn't borrow, obviously I couldn't do the program, right? Um, so at that time I was like, I was talking to Mary Leons, who was the associate dean of Georgetown. I said, I don't have any money. I need financial assistance, either in scholarship or loans to finish or to be in this program. And she said, well, nursing school, we don't really give any scholarships to graduate students. So you gotta use federal loans. And I'm like, well, I maxed out on Stafford loans, grad student loans. And then, but God opened the way, for me to borrow $200,000. And that's how I know that this is exactly what God wants me to do, right? Because if God did not want me to do Georgetown University, He would have blocked that path. And there are other things I could have done. I mean, where my path wasn't blocked. Like, as you know, I'm a licensed teacher in Virginia, licensed teacher in Alabama, licensed teacher in Tennessee, licensed teacher in South Carolina, licensed teacher in District of Columbia. Um, I'm eligible for full professional teacher license in Georgia. The first day I start teaching, they have that kind of state law. It's like a little weird, but so it's like my having a state license in Georgia because I'm eligible to teach, and I'm given the certificate the first day I start teaching. Um, so I mean, if the doors closed at Georgetown University, I couldn't borrow the $200,000. My dad's a retired clergyman; he has no money. Um, so I mean, and my uncle is a clergyman in the Presbyterian. I have like 30 or 40 Presbyterian clergy in my family. That's like it's like a family business. Being a Presbyterian clergyman. So there's no way for him to get money from my relatives who are all clergymen. All these clergymen. Um, but God opened the door, and it's a miracle that He opened the door that way. If He didn't open that door at Georgetown, if I could pay the tuition, I would have had to leave Georgetown. Even though I was accepted, I was all ready to go. If I didn't have the money to pay the tuition the first day of school, my first day of school, I would have had to leave and not do the program. And what I would have done is probably continue on teaching at District of Columbia Public Schools because, as you know, I was a full-time fifth grade elementary teacher at Savoy Elementary School, which is in Anacostia neighborhood, Ward 8 of Washington, D.C. My school is 100% African student population. And, I chose that school. I like that school. I like African Americans. And so I would probably continue teaching in Washington, D.C. in District of Columbia Public School as a full-time teacher. Or, I mean, maybe God will let me to go to like Tennessee where I have a teacher's license, or Alabama. I would love to go to Alabama. You know how beautiful women in the South are? I would probably go to Georgia. I mean, there's so many beautiful women in Georgia. I would have gone to either Alabama or Georgia or South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina. These are like, I would have loved to go on to any of these states, Alabama, Georgia, or South Carolina, to be, and then marry a beautiful Southern belle. Oh my gosh, that would be like dream come true. I'm not married, I'm single. But I like Southern belles. I mean, I like women who are blonde hair, blue eyed. That's my preference. Although I've dated people of all races, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, everybody, but Arabic. But um, I'm not married. I've never been married. I don't have any children. And obviously it's my priority to find somebody to marry. Hopefully God will send me somebody who loves Jesus. I mean, That's the most important. But after that, she has to have a beautiful body and beautiful face. That's very important to me. I mean, it's like important to all the guys. I'm just not going to lie about it. Like there are a lot of guys say, oh, it doesn't matter, but they're lying. Take care. Um, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, like the girl, like underneath this photo, like Julie. Yeah, she's she was first year master's student in English at Georgetown University. She's like second year now. So she's 100% remote. Because Georgetown University is 100% remote. Like her, somebody like her. Yeah, I love to marry somebody like her. Yeah, I mean, she's a good Christian actually. She's a very, very good Christian. So she would have been like, you know, perfect. But, but anyway, yeah. But anyhow, yeah, maybe Julie's watching the show. Maybe I should have said that. Oh, well, what are you gonna do? Lie? I mean, I could die from COVID-19 before Christmas. I'm not gonna lie. Julie, I mean, I'm sure you deserve the truth. I think you're very beautiful. So I'm not gonna lie about that. Um, so yeah, but anyway, yeah. But you see what I'm saying? Yeah. Um, Yeah, where were we? But anyway, yeah, let's go to. Yeah, let me just talk about the photos for a little bit. Next to that is my friend from India who's Catholic Christian, and she and I we went to Wuhan together, Jesuit University's Humanities Action Network, because I care about helping people. That's why I want to bring health equity to inner city African American neighborhoods primarily, but also Hispanic Americans and other neighborhoods as well. But I have a special heart for African American community. Um, but I went to I applied for this position and or scholarship or to represent Georgetown University at Jesuit University's Humanities Action Network. So all the Jesuit universities come together every 2 years to discuss how we can help people. So Catholic Charities head honcho was there. Jesuit Refugee Service head honcho was there. All the like Catholic agency top people who are related with humanitarian relief, related with Catholic Church were there, and we discussed basically how to help people. And I present our paper because it's like a gathering of people, and you present paper research, evidence-based research. So I presented on how to reduce diabetes among African American children in inner city neighborhoods because I care about African Americans. So I presented that after a long time of research. And people loved it, because it's relevant. Because if you get diabetes, it's like it slowly kills you. So I want to try to prevent early death of African Americans. So we can start with the children. And I'm a fifth grade elementary teacher at a school that's 100% African American, so this was kind of relevant for me. So had I not got the scholarship at yeah, that's what I was talking about at Georgetown. Well, not scholarship, it was like loan at Georgetown for $200,000. I would have probably gone and taught African American children either in DC or South Carolina or Tennessee or Alabama, because I have a heart for African Americans. Although I want to marry somebody who looks like Julie, Julie there, but Southern mother really beautiful. Julie's from Texas, so she's like a Southern belle, you know. Um, yeah. Um, so yeah. So anyway, yeah. So yeah. So but that's how God guides. God is in control of history. But God obviously wanted me to get my master's degree in clinical nurse leader, and obviously it was God knew COVID-19 would hit America, and He needed me to be part of the healthcare service. For whatever reason, I don't know exactly why yet, like why God led me this. I mean, God opened the door for a reason, right? So there's a reason. I mean, I don't know the grand plan of God in its completeness. You don't know what God doesn't tell you. You only know what God tells you, right? So, but had I not gone to Georgetown School of Nursing and Health Studies to do my master's in clinical nurse leader, I probably would not have been able to create this show, right? I probably would not have run for U.S. Congress as well. But because of my field of expertise, which is clinical nurse leader, master's level, and I'm certified clinical nurse leader now, um, obviously, you know, there's a purpose, God wanted me to create this show to give you the information you need to survive COVID because everybody's lying to you, especially liberal media. Both Republicans and Democrats are lying to you, unfortunately. And God wanted to maybe provide like a way that you and your children can survive COVID in the midst of all these lies, right? And maybe that's the reason why God directed me in this path. My goal, original goal in going to nursing school and the director of department or chairwoman of department of professional nursing, Professor Idilma Yearwood knows this because I write about it, I talk about these things, was originally to provide healthcare service to African American neighborhoods in inner city neighborhoods. That was my primary purpose. Although I also care about rural communities, like poor white rural communities in America, which doesn't have healthcare. And I also care about third world, like India and Pakistan and Sierra Leone and Ethiopia, countries that don't have great healthcare to build hospitals. So that was like my original plan, like doing some missions work in the third world and helping with healthcare, and doing domestic missions, like U.S. inside U.S. missions within inner city neighborhoods through healthcare, using that and tying it with Christian churches or like the or Christian healthcare services, and like I wanted to provide healthcare access to African Americans, that was my primary goal and mission field. Um, and also poor white neighborhoods in rural areas, and kind of combine healthcare with Christian missions. Um, but that was that was my plan, and that's still my plan. But for some reason, COVID-19 hit, right? I mean, none of us expected it, right? But it hit, and I created this show, and maybe this is why God sent me to Georgetown to create this show so that I could help you survive COVID-19. Then both Republicans and Democrats are lying to you, and the liberal media is lying to you like this doesn't matter. Obviously, there's a reason why thousands of Americans are dying per day. Somebody's not giving you right directions, right? If you had correct directions, if you had a Moses who led you straight from Egypt to Promised Land, it takes what, 3 weeks, maximum 3 months to get there, but it took 40 years for Israelites to get there because God made them wander around and around and around in the desert. Um, because God punished them for building a golden calf. God's kind of mean, because the journey from Egypt to Israel, Palestine, is like 3 weeks, maximum 3 months. All the Israelites should have been in the promised land. But as you know, if you read Book of Exodus, God had a pillar of fire that they were supposed to follow. Obviously, if God's going to send a pillar of fire round and round the desert, inside the desert, they're going to be inside the desert for 40 days, 40 years. That's what happened. God wanted them to wander around, suffer, and die in the desert. So, except for Joshua and Caleb, 100% of the people who came out of Egypt died in the desert. And we're talking about a journey that's less than 3 months long. It took them 40 years. And God is so mean, he only gave them two kinds of food, manna and quail. I mean, geez, how would you like to eat two food items for 40 years? I mean, that's like mean. But God's mean like that. I mean, because God could have given he could have given you a menu of all, like shrimp, whatever. But like God's like, oh, you're going to have manna and quail for 40 years. And you're going to follow that fire. And the fire is like going round and round in the desert, round and round. Because God is pissed at you because you built the golden calf. Because Ten Commandments says, thou shalt not have any other gods besides me. And God got pissed at Israelites for building the golden calf. And God's rarely forgiving, really. I mean, he forgives you and you can go to heaven if you repent. But he's going to make you suffer on earth. I told you that, right? And Exodus is good proof of that. God holds a grudge. God's a grudge holder. That's who God is. So you do God wrong, he's going to hold a grudge against you. Like grudge after grudge. Geez, who makes a people eat two food items for 40 days? And that's a grudge. God is mean. God is nasty. God, don't punish me. Don't be nasty to me. But I'm just trying to prove a point, so your people can follow you. Uh, hopefully he doesn't strike me with a lightning or anything. But because he's kind of mean. This is a didactic thing. I as a professional theologian, have to tell you what God is like, so you know how to make God happy, right? And that's in your interest too, God. Um, yeah, I think that's why he's sparing me when I call him mean. But I wouldn't call him mean unless it's in context of like explaining the words. Because he holds a grudge. God holds a grudge. Yeah. But anyway, next to my friend from India, well, she's born in America, but her parents are from India, is my friend from China. She's actually a Chinese citizen, and she's directly from China. Um, and yeah, so Cedric, the Cedric is like her American name, but she has a Chinese name. Junyu, she's really nice. She's pretty. And then next to that is a friend of mine who was in my creative writing club at Georgetown, and she likes to write. I like to write, so we're in the same club. And we were at Chick-fil-A's at Georgetown, and look how crowded it is. Well, it gets more crowded than lunchtime, but Junyu, she, and I were eating at Chick-fil-A's at Georgetown. And yeah, so that's you're seeing Healy Hall at Georgetown, which is the main building at Georgetown, and that's the Georgetown mascot, Jack the Bulldog. Um, yeah. So 929 people have died from COVID-19 in one day, 24 hours. Um, yeah. It's continuing. 1,000 people. As I say, liberal media is lying to you. Why would the most advanced country in the world, with the most advanced healthcare system in the world, with the best qualified nurses in the world, with the best nursing association in the world, with best nursing schools in the world, with the best nursing research in the world, why would our country have 1,000 deaths per day unless some people are lying to you? Proof is in the pudding, right? Geez, if we're following the truth and we're going in the right direction, there should be 1,000 people dying per day. But because the liberal media is lying to you, that's why. So maybe God wanted to throw your lifeline. Maybe God wanted you to have a source of truth, a way of saving yourself and your children, because God, despite the fact His means, He generally provides a way to survive, although people don't always take that path. Like Jesus was sent to die for you on the cross. So if you believe Him, you could have eternal life and don't have to go to hell. But God is mean, so He created a hell where you burn forever without burning up. That's going to give you a resurrected body after you die when Jesus comes back, just like you burn forever and experience pain forever. Pain on a pain scale of 1 to 10, like million out of 10. Yeah, that's how God mean. That's how mean God is. God created a specific place where you go forever without chance of redemption or escaping for eternity, because that's how mean is. God wants you to experience pain forever, so He's just going to give you a resurrected body and put you in a fire that doesn't burn, but you're going to feel the pain of being burning up. You feel the pain without your body burning. How cruel is that? That's how mean God is. But God did give you a chance to escape that by sending Jesus Christ, but you still have to believe in it. And not everybody's going to believe in Jesus. You see what I'm saying? So maybe God wanted to provide a way for you to escape COVID-19 death and survive it. And that's why He wanted me to create the show. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just, I'm not God. My original intention was to domestic U.S. missions and third world U.S. world missions and provide healthcare access to poor people, obviously preaching the gospel to them. Um, you know, but God's ways are not man's ways. Man can plan his path, but the one who determines it is God, right? Um, you know, and so Yeah, so I mean, I follow God's direction. But so I created this show, and obviously I have no money, so thank God for YouTube, right? If it weren't for YouTube, you would not have access to the truth. And thank God for Zoom, because without Zoom, so what, God brings together technology, which is free, so you can get the information you need, right? If there weren't YouTube, if there weren't Zoom, you would not get this information that may save your life if you take the advice and decide to follow that advice. You see what I'm saying? So God's bringing together factors, because I have no money, I can't pay for stuff, but YouTube is free, Zoom is free. So you see, God brings together factors in history to make it possible for Him to give you a lifeline in case you want to take it. Obviously, you make your own choice because God believes in free will. God's not going to force you to take your salvation. God's going to offer the salvation, but you have your free will to take it or not take it. That's your choice. Um, it's like salvation, right? But this is like that too. So for some reason, God, and that's why we say God is love, because even though He's mean, and that is definitely part of who He is love because He will always provide you a way out if you are willing to take it. You see what I'm saying? But not everybody will be willing to take it. But it's your free will. You do what you want, but you suffer the consequences of what you choose. Um, yeah. So God guides history. God's hand guides history. You see what I'm saying? Um, so yeah, we have 209,668 deaths so far in America. Uh, so it grew 929. And now we have 7,404,606 confirmed cases. You better pray that this show keeps continuing. I mean, if this show gets shut down, I have no problem. I get more sleep. You know, I work 12-hour shift, like 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I'd rather have 3 extra hours of sleep. So if God wants me to shut down this show, I'll be like, thank you, Lord. I mean, I'm doing this to save your life. I mean, I get nothing out of it. I don't get paid. I'm just doing this for free. I'm not getting paid at all. Like I get zero for like hours of work, $0 for hours of work. This is like a free public service fee. This is healthcare service. Obviously, I'm certified as a clinical nurse leader, so I'm officially an expert who can deliver this healthcare information to you. Um, yeah, but I don't get paid. This is like what voluntary work. I'm doing all this thing like it was a free service to the world. If God wants to shut this down, I'm like, praise the Lord. I get to sleep like 2, 3 more hours every day. You know what I'm saying? I mean, geez, this is for your benefit. I get nothing out of it. Um, yeah, so I mean, I'm going to serve God in the way God wants me to serve Him. But as I said, sometimes God closes doors, and I have no problem with that. Because God's in control. But like if God if God did not give me an opportunity to borrow $200,000 or get $200,000 somewhere to pay for Georgetown education, I would not have done it. I would have taught for 2 years. You know, um, the year before I went to Georgetown, I made like what, $80,000 or so from teaching, elementary school at Savoy Elementary School. So I mean, it's not that much money, but you know, I mean, it's enough to live in PC area, But you know what I'm saying? So if I had continued that for 2 more years, I would have made like $160,000 in 2 years, right? I mean, I did make $160,000, and I had to borrow $200,000. You see what I'm saying? So I'm out of $360,000 in 2 years because I did Georgetown program. Obviously, serving God is important to me, and I care about African Americans, and I was willing to do the work to work toward providing healthcare access to inner cities. Yeah, I mean that's a long-term plan, but I mean there's other things I still have to do to get there. So I'm still in that plan, and I'm hoping God will give me the money to do that. But the point is this, unless God wants me to go to U.S. Congress, and I'll go to U.S. Congress to save your life from COVID-19. If I win, I'll go to U.S. Congress to save your life. If I don't win, hey, I have no problem. I mean, I don't want to be cooped up in like Congress, you know. I'm a very active person. So I have like checklist of things I want to do in life. And you know, if I don't go to Congress, I could check off far more than if I go to Congress. You see what I mean? Going to Congress is like one checklist, you know. But if I don't go to Congress, I could check off like 100 different things. Um, yeah. So you know, I have no problem. You know, you vote for me, I go and help you and save you. If you don't vote for me, you know, I have other things I can do. You know, and you know, and my original plan is to provide healthcare services to inner cities, and obviously, if I'm a congressman, I could do that at a national level uh, as a policymaker. So, you know, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I ran to be U.S. congressman before COVID-19 struck. Because I felt like it's more effective to do it at a national level using tax dollars. Um, and then I could provide channels for African American churches to work together in the community to build the community and help the internet, you know, the healthcare access. Because community organizations are stakeholders, right? So, but anyway, you know, so you know, vote for me, don't vote for me, do what you want. You know, I mean, you know, I don't really. I mean, I want to be a congressman, but you know, I mean, geez, you know, I want to serve God far more than be your congressman. You know, I mean, if God wants you to be, if God wants me to serve Him by being your congressman, I'm happy to do that. But you know, um, yeah, but you know, it's not that important. I mean, I don't want to say it's not that important, but I guess I just tell myself and say, vote for me. It is very, very important. It's more important for you because you have people lying to you. And 1,000 people are dying per day. So, I mean, I think it's more important to you that I become a congressman than to me. You know, it's not. Yeah. You know, I mean, I'm a child of God. I'm a son of God. You know, I'm a Christian believer. I mean, that's the most important thing for me. Nothing else really compares. You know. So, anyway, yeah. So, looking at U.S. Cases, California has the highest number of cases at 830,766, 2% death rate. So 16,124 people have died. Texas is ranked number two with 788,080 cases um, and 16,295 deaths. So Texas is more death than California now, which is unfortunate, but yeah, that's the case. Um, yeah. So actually, the death rate should be 2%. I don't know why it says 1% there, but yeah, it's a typo. Maybe it's because Texas is like, you know, beat California, which was like number one for cases. And Texas is set to beat California in terms of cases, so it'll be number one too. Maybe that's why. Yeah. Anyway, Florida is 716,459 cases, and the death rate is 2%. 14,671 people have died in Florida. Yeah, I think Florida is making a big mistake opening up. I mean, I'm predicting that California, Texas, Florida, which each will have more than 1 million deaths because they're headed that way, you know? I mean, there's going to be 6 months of flu season. People are going to die left and right. Number four is New York, 464,582. So it's significantly lower than California, Texas, and Florida, but they had 32,205 deaths because their flu COVID-19 death were during the flu season, tail end of it, like April, but it was still at the end of it. Now we're going to start from beginning of flu season. We're going to go to the height of flu season, and then we're going to go to April. I mean, there's going to be like 30,000 people dying in April in every major city. At the tail end of it, like it was in New York. But during the height of flu season, you may have hundreds of thousands of people dying in the month. So that's something you have to expect. You know, if it doesn't happen, great, but you have to expect it and prepare for it. You know, hundreds of thousands of people dying in your state. Uh, as you know, I'm predicting minimum 3 million will die in America. That's 60,000 deaths per state. I mean, there are small states like Rhode Island and Delaware, but I still think even in those states you'll have 60,000 plus. Um, but yeah, but like California, Texas, and Florida, I'm predicting that 1 million people will die. Obviously, I don't want these people to die, but this is a global pandemic. And looking at the patterns, in the summer, we had like 1,000 people die. Obviously, in the flu season, it's not going to be the same as summer. Um, Georgia has 322,925. So God seems to love Georgia because Georgia could have, there's no reason why Georgia could not have been like California, Texas, and Florida, but Georgia has a lot of good Christians, They really love the Lord and they follow the Bible. In Covenant College, which is a Presbyterian church in American College in Georgia, a lot of great Christian colleges in Georgia. Many Georgia's Christians are very, they're loyal to the Bible. And so that's the reason why I think God spared a lot of people in Georgia. They only have 7,162 deaths. That's look at other states that had spikes. So God is mean, but God also is an egomaniac. I'm just trying to illustrate a point here. Egomaniac. So if you do what He tells you to do in the Word of God in the Bible, his ego is going to kick in, and he's going to spare. He could spare you, and I think this top 5 list shows that. Yeah, so today, I'm raising the question: President Trump versus ex-New Jersey Governor Christie in COVID-19 death survivor race. As you know, Governor Christie was going to run to be a president too, and I think he would have made a great president. He was a great New Jersey governor. But as I said, God's in control of history, and unfortunately, it didn't happen. I like Christie a lot. As you know, I was a resident of New Jersey. I've shared that with you several times. I lived in Union County in New Jersey, in Elizabeth. I've lived in Union. I guess it's still Union County in Jersey City. I've lived in Bergen County in Leonia area. So I've lived, and I had my company in Middlesex County in New Jersey, and also in New York in Rockland County, which is like a suburb of Manhattan. Um, yeah, so I know that area very well, and I like Governor Christie. But so my question is, President Trump versus Governor Christie, both of them have COVID. They announced it around the same time. Who's going to survive? Or who has a better chance of surviving? I mean, I thought you would like to know, right? I mean, they're public figures. Um, and, I like Christie because he's a devout Catholic and he follows the Vatican position on abortion and gay marriage. I like that about Christie. I'm hoping God will spare him, but, God, God also works through natural laws, right? So sometimes God performs miracles, and miracles do happen, but they're rare. That's why they're called miracles. If miracles happen all the time, they would not be miracles. I like this song.
Temptations, hidden snares often take us unawares, and our hearts are made to bleed for some thoughtless word or deed. And we wonder why the test when we try to do our best, but we'll understand it better by and by. By and by, when the morning comes, when the saints are gonna gather home, we will tell the story how we overcome. We will understand it better by and by.
Well, when the saints go home, that means you die, right? Sometimes God takes people's lives because that's a blessing. God wants you to come home. But sometimes God takes your life because it's a punishment. So there's two reasons for that. Um, and also there's generally if God finds that there's use for him, for you to live, God's going to let you live. God's an egomaniac. I need to speak in language you understand, and I gotta understand that. God's an egomaniac. He cares about his own glory. That's why we're supposed to glorify him through Christian worship every Sunday. Yeah, God's an egomaniac. That's why we worship him, right? We don't go to church to like worship each other. We worship God. because God wants to receive glory. That's he's egomaniac. You know, what can you say? Um, yeah, I need to speak in language you understand. So if God feels that you're going to add to His glory, He's going to let you live. But if God feels like you're not going to add to His glory, then God is going to take your life. You know, more easily. You know, and especially if He's pissed off at you. You know, I need to speak in language you understand. And you see that in the Bible. I mean, you read from book of Genesis to Revelation, look at it and see what it shows there. Um, yeah. So so the first article is a big red flag. Trump receives steroid treatment for COVID-19. Um, yeah, it's by Lauren Dunn, NBC News today. Yeah, that is a big red flag. You don't take steroids unless you have a very serious problem. The fact that his doctors prescribed steroid for him, the steroid is an anti-inflammatory. So weaker form of anti-inflammatory is like NSAID, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. NSAID, that's non-steroid because steroid has side effects. So doctors try not to prescribe steroid unless you are in a serious condition. Like you could die from the inflammation. Um, so doctors generally try to give you something low, like aspirin is a non NSAID, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, or uh, Motrin is like an NSAID. It reduces the inflammation. But like any drug, there's always a side effect. The problem with NSAID is it creates stomach problems. So if you take too much, you know, NSAID, you know, um, like Motrin, it could create, stomach ulcers, and it may get so bad that you may need a surgery for it. And there are other conditions that can occur from that that could eventually develop into serious enough illness or illnesses, several of them, that will result in death. That's why, obviously, not taking medication is the best if you don't have to. But obviously, sometimes you don't take medication, you could die. That's why you take medication. But all medicines have side effects, meaning even NSAID, which is kind of mild, it can um, it can lead to stomach problems that could develop into major problems that could kill you. Another problem with NSAID is it can damage your kidney. And so if you have a kidney problem, generally they don't want you to take NSAID because you can go into kidney failure, and that kidney failure could kill you. So you could take NSAID medication like Motrin, and it could solve the inflammation from, let's say, some kind of infection or some kind of disease like mild form of COVID or flu or cold. Uh, I mean, it could treat the symptoms because there's no cure for common colds or flu. Uh, Once it passes, like 1 or 2 days, and COVID-19, but it can reduce the symptoms. But in the process of reducing the symptoms, the side effect could injure your kidney, especially if you're over, 50, 60 years old. Then you could die from the kidney failure, even though your infection or inflammation is treated. And that happens a lot in hospitals. And people are taking medication at home as well, because some people just take medication at home, but you can be going to failure at home as well. So doctors and nurses have to balance, how to save your life without damaging other organs. And as soon as we see like your other organs are being damaged, we have to cut the medication. Yeah. So that for 12 hours, that's what nurses do. They monitor you to see if you're going through some kind of kidney failure, if you're taking medication like NSAID, and if that, if there's any signs of that. And that's why every morning there's a lab. Like today, at 4 a.m. because my shift was 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. At 4 a.m., phlebotomists, people who draw blood, come around and draw your blood and to see your, you know, blood count and your electrolytes, which are like chemicals in your blood, in your body. Everybody has chemicals in their body, but or and your kidney function, your liver function. They check this, and if there's a problem, then they have to reduce or cut the drug off, even if it could help you with other things. So there's a balancing act. Preserving human life is very hard, and America is the best hospital, and that's why when you're sick, you should go to the hospital, obviously, because they have the best chance of saving you. Because there's all kinds of things that can go wrong. Um, yeah, so if you feel like you can't breathe, go to the emergency room. That's absolutely necessary because if you feel like you can't breathe, you may be days away from death, hours away from death. We don't know, right? That's why you have to go to the emergency room. They take everything, they draw your blood, they take the scans of your body and organs, and they'll know. But that's why if you can't breathe, you have to go to the hospital right away. Call 911 if the problem is really serious. But I mean, 911 is a good way to go. Uh, but certainly go to the emergency room because it's not flu season. The 6 months long. You don't joke around because you could die. Like going one day late to the hospital when you can't breathe could mean the difference between death and life. Yeah, because your organs can be damaged. Seriously, if you're not getting enough oxygen, and oxygen levels is very important. That's why they check your oxygen level continuously. Um, yeah, yeah. I hope you want to be a Christian if you're not. The significant quote from that is the White House physician said Sunday that President Donald Trump is now taking another drug for COVID 19, adding to his growing list of treatments for his illness. Dr. Sean Conley said the president was given a steroid called dexamethasone following 2 episodes of transient drops in his oxygen saturation. You see, oxygen is going down. If oxygen goes down, oxygen cannot go to your organs can die. Um, that's why they need to give you oxygen through mask or through a respirator if oxygen level keeps going down and your lung functions are failing. And your lung functions can fail very fast, like all of a sudden. There are people who went back home after being treated for COVID who died at home the next day. Yeah, because their conditions suddenly start degenerating, and by the time they woke up the next morning, they're dead. Um, these things happen, uh, especially like during flu season. So meaning his oxygen level is dropped too low. So President Trump's condition, I would say, is very serious. Doctors will not prescribe dexamethasone unless it's very serious, because as I said, even milder form of inflammation uh, um, drugs have side effects that could damage your organs. I mean, they won't as long as we're keeping an eye and. But any factor there are different factors that could damage your organs. Like if you're not drinking enough water while you're taking medication, the same medication can have a stronger effect. So if you're drinking enough water, uh, you may not get damaged because kidneys need water to flow through the kidneys. But if you're not drinking enough water, then the same medicine you've been taking for days can damage your kidney. And we call that pre-renal acute kidney failure. And you could go into that when you're dehydrated, and that's why we say make sure you get hydrated, because one of the ways you could die from dehydration is through kidney failure. Um, yeah, so because once you have kidney failure, it starts to the process for multi-organ failure, right? One of your organs fails, other organs can fail, and then you die. Um, so, but there are conditions where you cannot drink too much water. So you can't just do what you want. You gotta follow what doctor says. That's why if you can't breathe, you should you have to go to the hospital. That's like important. Or you have a chest pain, like pain in the chest, go to the hospital. And that's your best chance of surviving. In the flu season, that's 6 months long. Because you're not going to know what to do. And even if you're like a nurse, you're not going to know what to do without, I mean, you're going to know basically what to do, but there are things that are going on in your organs and your blood that has to be scanned by advanced technology, by blood tests. You can't do that at home. You have to go to the hospital. So even if you're a nurse, even if you're a doctor, you have to go to the hospital. You need these advanced technology to know what's going on inside your body. Yeah, so if you can't breathe or you have chest pain, make sure you go to a hospital. Come to Virginia Hospital Center. That's where I am. Yeah. Um, so what helps COVID-19 kill us? Um, Number one problem is diabetes. So if you have diabetes, your chance for dying from COVID is very high. Second highest problem is obesity, like in fat. And generally, fat people have diabetes. Uh, oh, my throat is getting dry. Um, um, yeah, so yeah, so kidney disease, right? Can is like the third problem. Uh, yeah, and we've been talking about the kidneys for a little bit, right? Cardiac, your heart problems. Yeah, you may be surprised. Like, um, you may be surprised that kidney problems have higher chance of dying than heart problems. But it makes sense because, as I said, your kidney fails. Um, it creates like a cascade of problems. It's like related to uh, to your blood perfusion, blood spreading through your body, and so that's why kidney. It makes sense. Generally, people who have diabetes are fat and have kidney problems. So diabetes, I would say, is the worst thing you can have during COVID-19. Um, and you might have thought, well, having heart problem is the worst. No, it's not the. That's not the worst. It's diabetes. Um, Yeah, diabetes. Look how high your diabetes is than everything else. If you have diabetes, the chance of dying from COVID-19 is very high. Um, and heart problem is obviously high too. But look at this lung problem, pulmonary. Uh, Pulmonary problem is much lower than heart problem, which is lower than kidney problem. You see that for dying? Um, and people say this is a pulmonary disease, right? A respiratory disease, but people who die are not the ones who have like. It's worse to have diabetes than asthma. I mean, obviously, if you have asthma, your chance of dying is higher. But diabetes is the number one problem. And if you have diabetes, your chance for dying is very high. So, yeah, I mean, make sure you don't go out too much. I mean, I would not meet anybody if I were you, if you have diabetes and you're fat. Just meet people online. If you use Skype or whatever, Uh, don't meet in person if you have diabetes. You don't want to increase your chance of death. I mean, you don't want to do that. You have 6 months. You have to like discipline yourself to live. I mean, if you want to live, I mean, you need to uh, to try to reduce meeting people to zero. People outside of your home to zero. Um, I mean, just that's the safest way to go. Obviously, you may not get COVID even though you meet people, but you can. But your chance of dying is so high if you have diabetes, you should just try to stay home and not go outside to meet people. I mean, we have technology to that. In the Middle Ages, like if you don't go outside of your home, you're completely cut off from the world. We don't live in that kind of world anymore. So you don't have to go out and meet people outside. Just meet people online. Um, there are ways to entertain you. You can watch TV, you can watch movies. You can read, you can pray. There's no reason why you need entertainment outside of your home. So God is giving you all these things that where you don't have to jeopardize your life, but some people choose to, and that's a shame. Um, Make sure you exercise. Get an exercise bike, treadmill. You gotta create like an exercise zone in your home. I mean, if you have an extra room, convert it to an exercise room. If you don't have a separate room, just kind of have a treadmill to the corner in your room. There treadmill which you can fold up even. If you have enough space, just keep it open, have an exercise zone. But if not, you could have get one of these folding up treadmills, exercise bikes. Just if you have enough space, get a ping pong table. That's a good way to exercise. Playing ping pong. Um, yeah. So yeah, pool. You don't really do much sports with pool. So for exercise purposes, ping pong table is better. Yeah. Second article. Ex-New Jersey Governor Chris Christie hospitalized after COVID-19 positive test. Medical history includes asthma since he was a teen. As I said, yes, you can die from asthma. Obviously, look, pulmonary problem is much higher than other kinds of problems, right? It's much higher than liver disease, um, but it's not as high as diabetes. So it's Governor Chris Christie has asthma and diabetes. Oh, jeez, that's bad. And that was in NewJersey.com, Rebecca Panico. And the significant quote that you need to know from this is former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie revealed Saturday he tested positive for coronavirus. So it was like a couple days after President Trump announced it, and checked into a hospital, which is a smart thing. Um, if you can't breathe, you must check into the hospital. I don't know if he had a problem with breathing, but obviously he has asthma, so it's probably a good idea to check into the hospital. Um, and if you feel like changes in breathing pattern, which previously led to him being briefly hospitalized during his term as governor. Yeah, so asthma alone can lead to that. But obviously, if you have COVID-19 or flu as someone who has asthma, yeah, it can be very serious. So, who has a higher chance of dying, President Trump or Governor Christie? President Trump is definitely overweight, so he's considered obese. But he's not considered morbidly obese or morbidly obese. I'm not trying to insult anyone here. It's a technical term. Morbidly obese is a level of obesity that's higher than just obese. And President Trump is obese. He may even be at the bottom end of what is categorized as morbidly obese. But as you can see from Governor uh, Christie's photo, he is in the category at a kind of upper tier of morbidly obese. So from that perspective, Governor Christie has a higher chance of dying, unfortunately. Obviously, I don't want either of them to die. But I want both of them to live. Um, so you see that overweight, you know, uh, have 40% higher chance than not overweight people to die from COVID. But people who are obese are 70% higher than those who are not overweight or a normal weight. But look at morbidly obese. Severely obese is like morbidly obese. It's 240% higher chance of dying. You see that? So when we compare President Trump, who's kind of obese, to ex-governor Governor Christie from New Jersey, who's considered severely obese, you can see the chances, right? The difference between life and death. Um, yeah, so hands down, ex-governor Christie has a much higher chance of dying, unfortunately. Um, and Yeah, that alone. I mean, that's obesity is number two, right, on the list of what helps COVID-19 kill us. And the news article did not reveal whether Governor Christie has diabetes or not, but if he does, then he would have like obesity and diabetes, and he does have asthma, so asthma. So there's a very low chance Governor Christie will survive COVID-19. I would say Governor Christie probably could die within anywhere, anytime in the next few days. If he has a ventilator, he can live months, and obviously he can survive. There's always a chance a person can survive from COVID. People have. So, but there's a high probability that Governor Christie will die within the next few days as his condition degenerates, and or within probably within a few days, a few weeks. Um, but I mean, if he's intubated with a breathing tube that's breathing for him, and as long as he keep the infection and inflammation down, and not damage his organs, he may be able to survive months. And I mean, there's always a small chance that he can survive the whole thing. Um, and I wish him the best. I hope he survives. But the reality is there. And obviously, the reason I'm pointing this out, because there are those of you out there who have body shape like Governor Christie, so you kind of need to know what your chances are, right? Because it applies directly to you. You want to know exactly what your chances are, right? An estimate. And people avoiding that topic will probably frustrate you, right? And that will add to your stress, which is not good for you because stress could make your immune system weaker. So I'm going to bring you the truth so you know exactly what to expect. So when you know something, you could do things to control your environment to reduce potential that you're going to get COVID-19. In which case, your stress levels will go down, which will help your immune system, which will help your survival rate. Because there will be fat people who survive. There'll be severely fat people or obese people who survive COVID-19, obviously. But there's just a higher chance, 240% higher chance that you could die from COVID. Yeah. Um, yeah. So if you have a body shape condition like asthma or I don't know if the Governor Christie has diabetes, but if you have that kind of body shape, you just recognize your chance for death is 240% higher than like people without weight problems. Yeah, 240%. That may be part of what's driving the 1,000 deaths per day. People who are severely obese and obese, you know. So that I mean, but there are thin people who have died. There are thin people who are like 20 years old, 18 years old who have died. So it's not like if you're thin, you're not going to die from COVID. There are a lot of thin people who have died. People without any conditions have died. So yeah, but I mean, there's statistics, right? And that could help. Um, yeah, so I wanted to cheer for my clinical nurse leaders because there are members of our cohort who are overweight in those categories, uh, three categories, and they obviously, I know there are people who have asthma because they've shared with our cohort. There are people with allergies, peanut allergies, and um, so there are people who are gonna, face that. And, I'm sure not many, but some of the core members of diabetes, and that is a serious problem in the flu season. So I'm predicting that out of 25 CNL 2024 members in our Georgetown University Master's Program in Clinical Nurse Leader, we graduated in August 24, 2020. I'm predicting that you know the minimum 5 to 10 will die. I mean, our program ended before August 10th. So technically, all of our whole program ended before August 10th. But our official graduation date on our transcript was August 24, 2020, because there's a lot of different programs at Georgetown. and they have their technical graduation dates. But yeah. Um, but anyway, yeah. So I mean, I feel bad for nurses because nurses are at the forefront of COVID-19 fight, as you know. And so nurses are exposed to COVID-19 and a higher chance of getting it and dying from it. So flu season has just started, and I think, and I've tweeted like President Trump has ushered in America's flu season with his COVID-19. And I think that's true. Maybe God loves Americans enough to warn Americans that flu season has started. It's going to be 6 months and you could die from it, you could get COVID and die from it. So maybe God's using President Trump as a way to give a last warning to 330 million Americans to be careful in the 6 month long flu season. God is mean, but God is fair and God is just, and God's going to give you a way out, way to save yourself as long as you're sensitive to God and follow the word of God, the Holy Bible. I mean, a lot of people refuse to do that, and you choose what you want, and then you suffer the consequences of your decision. Right? That's just anything in life. Um, so yeah, so I hope I hope you survive. I know there's going to be 3 million to about 30 million, maybe more. It could be more than 30 million, but I'm giving you a likely figure, 3 million to 30 million, like a feasible figure that could happen in 3 months. But it could be like 100 million, it could happen. We don't know. We don't know how bad the flu season will be. Um, because there are a lot of people with diabetes in America. Over 60% of Americans are overweight. That's like over 200 million Americans are overweight. So 100 million Americans dying can happen because of the overweight nature of Americans. Because we eat too much like chocolate, ice cream. Like, you get dumped by a boyfriend, you eat ice cream. And, Americans like to eat dessert at every meal. And, that's going to go to your waist or your hips or your thighs, or your, yeah, drinking beer. There's beer belly, that's all fat. So, yeah, so cut down on the beer, cut down on the cakes and the sugary stuff. Um, as you know, I drink Diet Coke. I don't drink regular Coke. I drink Diet Coke. I mean, reduce the sugars if you can. Um, yeah. So, yeah, you gotta reduce sugar in your diet. Um, yeah. So, I mean, 6 month long flu season, 60,000 minimum will die in every state, which means minimum 3 million will die. And you know this because President Trump got COVID. He's being tested every day. And many of you, like ordinary American citizens who are not president of the United States, will not discover you have COVID until it may be too late. I mean, because you're not being tested every day. President Trump might not have known that he had COVID if he didn't get tested every day. In which case, 3, 4 days in, he might have shown up to the hospital and died like a few hours later. That happened to 3 Orthodox Jewish men who showed up to the hospital and they died hours later. Yeah, because they didn't know they had COVID. Like they didn't know even after they went to hospital. They were, they died and they found out they had COVID. But right, because you get COVID tested when you go to hospital. Yeah, I mean, if you don't know you have COVID, the condition gets worse inside your body. I mean, maybe too late. You don't know. I mean, obviously go to the hospital whenever you have problem with breathing. That's a good sign you have COVID or flu or some kind of condition, or if you have chest pain. Um, yeah, those are two things that you should definitely go to the emergency room if you can't breathe. If you feel like you can't breathe or if you have chest pain, these are two things that should bring you to the emergency room because they'll immediately do all the tests that they need to. And, hours can make the difference between you living or dying in certain cases. So, yeah, you definitely go to the emergency room if you can't breathe or if you have a chest pain. I mean, it may turn out to be like a heartburn, nothing serious, in which case, great. But what if it is something serious, right? That's why you go to the emergency room. I mean, geez, you can't take your money with you. You, I mean, yeah, don't be slow about going to hospital if you can't breathe or if you have chest pain. Don't be slow about that. And Virginia Hospital Center is very close from Arlington. So if you're in Arlington, just go to Virginia Hospital Center. Tell tell the 911. I don't know if you can tell them where to go, but or if you're gonna drive there, drive to Virginia Hospital Center or take an Uber to Virginia Hospital Center, whatever, take a taxi. Yeah, just get there, you'll be there like really quickly, and then they will take care of you at the emergency room. Yeah, yeah, you need to go to Virginia Hospital Center or another hospital nearby if you have difficulty breathing or chest pain. These are emergencies. Yeah, emergencies. So anyway, flu season starting. It's going to be for 6 months. If your children say they can't breathe, make sure you take them to the emergency room. Um, if they have nothing, that's great. But if they have something, yeah, emergency room is the best. If you can't breathe or if you have chest pain, emergency room. Because you're going to urgent care, they delay your. I mean, go to urgent care, and if you have non-serious stuff. But emergency, like during COVID-19 flu season, if you go to urgent care and they see that you have a problem, then they will call 911 for you or transfer you to emergency room. It's going to take too much time. So I would say just go directly to Virginia Hospital Center emergency room if you can't breathe or you have chest pain. That way, you're minimizing lost time. This few hours can mean the difference between you living or dying. You want to minimize time lost. Other conditions, you could go to, urgent care, You have fever, but you still can breathe, I mean, if you have fever, yeah, I mean, you could just go to urgent care, but I mean, if your fever is high, obviously go to emergency room. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, you want to take care of your body 6 months. A lot of people are going to die. You don't want to be in the number of those who die. And it depends on you, right? Depends on you. I would have all, like I would have everything programmed, ready to go. I do Navigator, program it to like Virginia Hospital Center, emergency room. Um, you know, if you can't breathe, but you can kind of drive, you can drive there yourself in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, right? So yeah, I mean, don't take chances with your life. It's not worth it in COVID-19 flu season. It's not worth it. Anyway, maybe I'll see you at the Virginia Hospital Center. As you know, I'm working as an RN nurse there. So yeah, and all the nurses are really nice and they're really good. So they take good care of you. So yeah, if you have any problems, come to Virginia Hospital Center. Anyway, I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow. As you know, this is a daily show. And a lot are happening. I hate to announce that Governor Christie has died from COVID, but that may come this week sometime. As early as this week. It's unfortunate. Uh, yeah, but yeah, it's sad. Hopefully not. Hopefully he will survive this, but yeah, hopefully not. But and that could happen with President Trump too. I mean, he's taking his steroid, and let's be serious. The side effect is really bad. A lot of bad side effects. Obviously, you're gonna take it if you have a problem. Um, but I mean, it's possible he could die this week. You should be surprised if he dies this week because that could happen. He's in the zone of potential to be dying. Um, yeah, I mean, I hope not, but yeah. So this week's gonna be really, really critical week, right? We have three senators who were diagnosed with COVID-19, and they're kind of old, so they could die too. So we may have news of death of senators this week. But, and as you know, Governor Northam, he's a younger guy, but and he's pretty thin, but he and his wife had COVID too. So that's something that we gotta keep an eye on. That could go south very fast, and he could die as well. So there's a lot of potential COVID-19 death this week of high-profile individuals. Yeah, so keep checking every day. Make sure you watch the show. It's probably the most important show you'll watch every day. You need the truth, right? You need to know what's going on. You also need insights, and you need to know concrete steps to save yourself from COVID death, you and your children. So, yeah, so tune in tomorrow. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And yeah, I hope that you'll be well. And I hope that your children will be well too. And listen to some hymns and praise songs. You could Google it on Google it, hymns or gospel songs and listen to it. It's good. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye.